All right, everybody. Good Wednesday morning. It's time for another look into the not too distant future of the Seahawks. And this one's going to be pretty quick to go over. It is a position that we're going to need to address one way or the other, but it's also not a position with a ton of nuance. We are talking about kicker. Today, the topic of conversation is kicker. You're only going to have one unless you're one of the rare teams that uses a specialized kicker for long field goals and kickoffs and another for everything else, which I don't think this team would do. So we got to think about this, but we just have to basically make one decision. You just need one kicker at the end of the day. So it's not like some of these other positions where you need to worry about your depth. You need to worry about getting a guy who's good enough to start. No, there's just one kicker. Either he's good enough or he's not. So with that in mind, this video probably won't take too long, but we do have to spend time talking about this because as we've learned over the last couple of years, having a kicker is kind of a big deal. We had the good kicker in 2020. We had a great kicker, maybe the best kicker in the league that year. He was incredible, Jason Myers. And then last year, same kicker, but I don't know if he was the worst kicker in the league, but he was down there. And he missed some big kicks too. You can easily look at Jason Myers and say he bears a lot of responsibility for losing to the Titans, the Bears, the Saints. Maybe you could even throw the Vikings in there. I don't know if I would go that far, but there was a lot on his shoulders. And we should learn a lesson from that, is what I'm going to say. It's the same kicker, 1 year apart, goes from one of the best to one of the worst. What changed? What really changed with Jason Myers? Did he do the Freaky Friday swap with Blair Walsh? No, he's the same guy, same kicker, same abilities, same leg, just worse results. And going back to the previous year, 2019, by the way, he wasn't very good that year either. So, what I'm trying to get at here is that kicking in the NFL right now, a little bit random. It's a little bit random who's going to be good from year to year. It's hard to predict unless you can get a top level guy like a Justin Tucker. The best thing to do is get somebody who's going to be cheap, who you can give a short term contract to, and cross your fingers because most of this stuff is pretty random. So right now we have one kicker on the roster. It is still Jason Myers. As far as we know, he's going to be the kicker this year. I would personally move on, try to find somebody else. Maybe you can find the next Justin Tucker. You're not going to find him if you don't look for him. But seems like we're sticking with Myers. If we do, he will be a free agent in 2023. Now, obviously, all these things we talk about are heavily contingent on how these players do in 2022. In fact, these players are going to be offered contracts based almost entirely on what they do in 2022, right? If they have big years, if they have great years, they're going to get good offers. If they don't, they'll be lucky to get any offer at all. So it's really hard to predict future contracts with these guys, which is why I didn't even try. But here's what I'm going to say. When it comes to Jason Myers and it comes to anyone else on this list, try to find somebody cheap. Try to find somebody who will take that 1 year deal, who will play for a kicker contract that has an AAV that's not in the top 18 or 20 for kickers, and just hope the lottery numbers come out in your favor this time. Hope the coin lands on heads this year instead of tails. Obviously, there are some guys you're going to want to avoid, like Mason Crosby's a free agent next year, but he's just had the worst year of his career by far. He's old. It makes sense that he might be losing it. I wouldn't go after that guy. He's going to be, I think, 39 or 40 by the time he would play for us if we signed him next year or something like that. Guys like Matt Prater, kind of the same thing. It makes sense to avoid those guys. Ideally, you want to find somebody who has been good before, but for one reason or the other is available on the cheap. And I think that's the way to go. And that guy could be Jason Myers, by the way. We know Myers has been good in the past. He was good for the Jets and he was good for us in 2020. So if Myers has a mediocre year in 2022 and you can bring him back for like 1 year, 2 million in 2023, then I might be okay with that. You're getting a guy who has proven to be good in the past and you're paying a very reasonable amount of money for him compared to giving him 4 years, I think it was 16 million. There's a big difference there. The 8 guys I have listed on screen are guys who caught my attention as I was looking through future free agents. Boswell's been very successful in a stadium where on a team where half his kicks are in a stadium that's hard to kick in Pittsburgh. So he would be great. Matt Gay, been good for Tampa Bay. Joey Sly has a big leg. Hasn't totally latched on anywhere yet, but I see something there with him. I got Greg the Leg. I got Pinheiro, the guy who took over in Chicago, et cetera, et cetera. All these guys have something. Most of them have at least had good seasons before. Some of them, most of them really, are not coming off their best seasons. Matt Gay and Chris Boswell did have very good seasons last year. But other than that, you are looking at guys who have lower than their previous value. And that's what I'm looking for here. That is what I'm trying to find. I'm trying to find kickers who are going to be a little bit undervalued because their play wasn't up to standard in the most recent season, but they can get there. Because at the end of the day, whatever you do is going to produce a fairly unpredictable result, because the really good kickers who are good every year, like Tucker, like for a long time Vinatieri, for a long time Gostkowski, the guys who you can depend on for decades, they don't come around that often. And when they do, it's hard to get them. Like the Ravens have kept Justin Tucker around for a long, long time because they felt good about him. And they knew they could always count on him to come through. And they weren't going to let that get away because they know how hard that is to find. But we can find it again. We just have to hope things go our way. So my point is, as long as we know that we are kind of rolling the dice with our kicker, don't spend big money. Don't give them the big contract. Find somebody who's going to play for cheap. Get somebody who has the big leg, who can theoretically make 55-plus long-yard field goals. And then if he doesn't work out, okay. It can't be any worse than Myers was last year anyway. Would you rather pay a bad kicker $2 million or a bad kicker $4 million? You see what I'm saying here? So that's my generalized take on kickers. All the guys on screen would be fine. There are going to be other guys added to this list as this season goes on. If a kicker who has traditionally been good has a really bad season, then maybe they get cut and suddenly they're available to you. Maybe a guy like, a Matt Prater has a decent season and shows that he still has years left, but he gets let go and you're able to snatch him up. I'm open to it. But the key point here is, unless you are getting somebody who you know is going to be a great kicker for you for the foreseeable future, just save the money. Spend the money somewhere else. Whoever it is on this list, Jason Myers or any of the free agents, that's my main guiding light here. It's not any one particular guy I like that much more than the other. At the end of the day, they all could go one way or the other. So just don't spend big, and I'm not going to really complain about whatever it is the team does. That's free agency. Now let's talk about trying to find what I was just talking about, the next Justin Tucker. If you want to do that, you do it through the draft. And as of right now, there are a handful of kickers who are slated to be draftable in the upcoming 2023 draft. What needs to be specified, though, is that what they do in 2022 is going to be massively informative on whether or not they maintain their draftable status. Like, if Jake Moody and Will Richard, Michigan and Alabama's kickers, those guys seem to be 1 and 2 right now. If they don't have good seasons, forget it. They're out, right? Like, unlike these other positions where things are so contextual, kickers kind of are what they are. Either you have the good results or you don't. Either you show that you can make a 60-yard field goal or you don't. Either you make all your extra points or you don't. It's going to be a little easier to parse through this stuff. So keep an eye on these 5 guys. This is what I'm going to say. Jake Moody from Michigan and Will Richard from Alabama both project to be as high as 4th rounders. And I know that sounds high, but we have seen kickers go much higher than that previously. It just doesn't happen that often. I predict one of those 2 guys will go in the first, I'll say 5 rounds. Right now I have them pegged as 4th rounders. Noah Ruggles from Ohio State, 5th rounder. Jake Oldroyd from BYU, 7th rounder. And Braden Narveson from Western Kentucky, I have projected as a 7th rounder. Those would be my 5 guys to keep an eye on. But new guys are going to emerge, and at least one of these guys is likely to fade because they don't have a big season. That's the nature of how college kickers kind of work. It's like NFL kickers. It's a little random. People are constantly spiking up and down in terms of what they are able to offer offer their team and offer to any teams that might consider getting them. So if you want to try to find that next Justin Tucker, then those are the guys that I would initially target. We're going to have to monitor this as the college football season goes on, though. One thing I noticed, a lot of the kickers who had big 2020 seasons really didn't kick very well in 2021. There were a lot of guys who were getting a ton of hype coming out of 2020, and it just was like from 90% to like 70%, a lot of them. So there are going to be guys who did not kick well last year who you're going to keep an eye on, and they might get back up to 90% plus this year, and then they'll be back on the menu. And that's kind of the nature of the kicker position, but that's my philosophy on it right now. So let me know what you guys think. Let me know if you guys would target anybody different. Let me know if you guys would go about things a different way, but that's how I look at it, and these are my targets right now. See you guys later. Go Hawks.